we do have another big topic here. I wasn't lying when I said there was a lot of stuff to cover. So tight end room. So we've been doing our spring football preview series these last couple of episodes, and we're on to tight ends. And of course, you had the loss of Eric All to Iowa and the loss of Luke Schoonmaker to the NFL, who obviously he just did pretty well at the combine, as we said. So now you got Colston Loveland, who has emerged as the definitive tight end, first tight end, based on what he did, especially towards the second half of the season against teams like Ohio State. Just it seems like him and JJ just have this kind of rhythm where they're not automatic, but pretty automatic.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that, really show itself in the Big Ten title game. I mean, it was like what the first touchdown was to Colston Loveland, I think. I think he actually got hurt on that play, if I'm not mistaken, but still, no, absolutely. He I think out of himself, Eric All, and Schoonmaker, I think that people have been the highest on him. And both those those two guys, Schoonmaker and Eric All, were very productive tight ends.
Yep.
So
you were right. First play, first touchdown was Colston Loveland.
Right. So if Colston can be even a step better than those guys, that speaks really well to what this offense can be. And look, I can't stress this enough, John. It is imperative that JJ in this passing game gets more proficient. If they want to take another step.
Absolutely.
Do they have to can they roll out the same offenses last year and probably get to where they were? It's a good chance. I mean, look, the continuity on the offensive line, the return of Blake Coleman, Donovan Edwards, they're going to be able to run the football at will, right? And defensively, as long as they don't take too many steps back, they should be fine, right? But I just think for the type of arm that JJ has, the running ability that he has, I can't stress enough that there is more juice out of fruit that could be squeezed. And I just would really, it'll feel really underwhelming and disappointing to me if I don't see them open up the playbook and be a little bit more efficient with doing so,
Well, with the additional reps that they're getting in spring, I mean, you remember JJ was out all of spring.
Right. He was hurt. Yeah, his shoulder got shut down. Yeah.
Cade was running the offense, and
Correct.
we know that he has limitations.
Yeah.
So this apparently JJ is doing extremely well in spring ball, and they're trying to get him to throw to Cornelius Johnson a lot. Apparently Cornelius has a lot of as rightfully so, a lot more confidence now after what he did, especially against teams like Ohio State. So they're really, I think, trying to set up more complex passing concepts, especially for games against Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State, and then the postseason.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I really would like to see is, of course, you want the number one thing is everyone stay healthy, right? You want guys who are banged up to get healthy, and you want guys who are healthy to stay healthy. But especially when the season, gets started and they have that weaker schedule, let's see some new wrinkles, right? Let's really see what we can do. And we know. Look, there is a certain cap to what Jim Harbaugh is going to allow, right? So I'm not expecting something that's not realistic, but. Yeah.
It's not Ryan Day off it. We're not
right.
expecting.
No, we're
Ryan
not expecting that. It's not going to be that.
Lincoln
right?
Riley.
But
yes.
But diversification. Diversification. Just have different ways you could punch. A team in the mouth where it's like, oh wow, that's why the Ohio State game was so refreshing. They totally sold out on a run. It was like they weren't even prepared for even the threat of the passing game, and you saw like, oh my god! And then when they tried to figure it out, then the running game took off on them, and you really saw a microcosm of how dangerous this offense can be when they're clicking on both sides of the when they have different ways to beat you, right? It's man. I just think they can do more of that consistently. Watch out.
Yeah, I don't necessarily blame Ohio State because especially, we were both live at the Illinois game and we saw firsthand that nothing was happening when Blake Corum got injured, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I don't necessarily blame Ohio State for selling out to that degree to stop the run because Michigan just hadn't proved up to that point really that other than against the really tough opponents like Hawaii,
Right.
but other than the really tough like Hawaii type opponents, there was a lot of struggle opening things up, right? So I don't necessarily blame them, but I do think that Knowles in the second year, he's going to get a little smarter. I think Ryan Day is apparently pushing for him to account for the passing game a little bit more because JJ can throw the deep ball, and he's proven he can now throw the deep ball.
Well, for us, I really hope he doesn't. No, keep doing the same mistake, and
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah, we're gladly take advantage of it all day and go for this repeat. I can't believe, John. I cannot believe that those words coming out of my are like if I would sound like a broken record.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you would have said this to me 2 years ago, I would have said you are nuts. That going into the 2023 season, that Michigan will be looking to repeat as Big Ten champions and beating Ohio State for a third year in a row. It's an incredible place to be in terms of the Big Ten. We are the king, and it just it's what it is.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, we're here. How do we stay here, right? Because now you're going to get everyone's best shot. Like most teams want to beat Michigan anyway. It's just one of those programs where you beat University of Michigan, it's bragging rights, right?
Right.
But especially when you're at the top, everybody's coming for you in this conference. So, and you do. Antoine loves eating his cupcakes, whatever, man. I enjoy some with you, man. I enjoy some with you, earlier this year. But, I don't want guys to get lost in the sauce in especially when the Big Ten title play starts because, you don't want to be sleepwalking because things get too easy. And, other teams are giving you the best shot, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a dog fight, right? So those are some of those things you need to be wary of. GOJ, you're well aware of that. Being an Ohio State fan, you guys have been dealing with being at the top for a long time, so I'm sure what that's like. But not now.
Yeah. And these two, so I actually set this up ahead of time, but Mike G is right on the money here with at least to put the question out there to push Loveland to wide receiver, because as Donovan All, those of you who remember Donovan All, he was complimentary to Luke Schoonmaker, but basically said Loveland couldn't block worth a damn. I think those were the exact words. So they, I wouldn't be completely shocked if eventually, not in September, but eventually he's moved to kind of a wide receiver type role, depending on the blocking ability.
Yeah. Well, look, it's always dangerous when you have especially the tight end position where they are a little bit more one-sided in their skill set because, and I see this more on the NFL level, if they get subbed out for more of a blocking style tight end, it's a little bit easier for the defense to kind of key on what you're trying to do, as opposed to a tight end who can do a little bit of both where, right, you're like, oh, are they passing? Are they running? Right. So it's always a little bit dangerous when you do that. But look, anytime if Loveland really is that big of a dynamic pass catcher, any way you can line him up that creates a mismatch with a DB, I'm all for it, right? And give him a chance to get an advantage on the outside. Maybe you could take advantage of it.
Antoine, I think you're on to something there. He is a rookie. He's still young. He can develop his blocking. Let's see, and let's not forget that we have two other tight ends who can block pretty well. AJ Barner, transfer from Indiana, who did have 28 receptions and could easily see him taking like a Schoonmaker type role in this offense. That's something people aren't really talking about him because all the focus has been on Colston Loveland and what he did in those last couple of games, but AJ Barner is a legit tight end, and he can easily be the second kind of a tight end too. If you're doing like a 2 tight end set, you can easily have Colston Loveland on one side, AJ on the other side, for sure. So he can block, and Max Bredesen is another one who they primarily use him as a blocker. We remember Ben Bredesen; he could make some moves. and his brother can too on the blocking side. So
He can block. He
maybe,
can block pretty well. Yeah.
yeah, so maybe Colston Loveland does take a couple of snaps at like a wide receiver slot from time to time. You go in the Y position potentially. You just give yourself that opportunity to become, you got to use his skill set, and his skill set is he's really good with JJ in terms of receptions. And then you have these two who are proven to block pretty well.
Well, one thing that should give you some pretty good solace about Loveland getting better with his blocking is that this coaching staff does a great job. Obviously, developing offensive linemen, helping develop their technical blocking. So, I'm sure he's going to get the right tutelage to improve that skill set. Now, some of that will depend on him, his actual abilities, in that area. But it's not something that I think is going to hinder this offense in any way. The kid's obviously very talented, and they'll find a way to utilize him the best way they can, right? And overall, I think the strength of this offense is the offensive line and their ability to understand their roles, to work together, to communicate, identifying certain defensive schemes out there, what they're trying to do against them, and as long as they're majority healthy throughout this year, they'll be just fine.
Absolutely. LFG wish that Harbaugh would let his offense pass more. He darn sure did that at Stanford. Yeah, with Andrew Luck.
Right.
Got to mention that.
Right. A little caveat. One of the best, one of probably the best college football quarterbacks of all time. Not the, but one of. Yep. Right. A little caveat there.
For sure.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
At the farm was built around throwing to the tight ends, and yes, they ran the ball too. And I would argue, and Steve Deace has said this, Harbaugh has mostly taken the 2009 Stanford offensive playbook and started using it in 2021 when his job was on the line. He said, "Look, we're going to take the Stanford 09 playbook and we're going to run it." And Gaddis has a couple of plays he can call from that, but basically that's what kind of started to happen from 2021 onward. And so JJ is pushing the coaches apparently to pass more, to do more deep balls, to JJ has always been one of those players that challenges the coaching staff. Like when he makes a mistake, he's like all in on fixing it. Like that, he is his energy, his like enthusiasm for the game, and his willingness to just do whatever it takes to like he was saying, I remember last year there was this one comment about, can they hit me harder so that if we could try to keep the ball in my hands. There was something about that where like, because he had like he lost a ball at some point and he said can they hit me harder? And Matt Weiss said, well, probably not a good idea to go full force on your starting quarterback in practice to try to knock the ball out. Probably not the best idea, but we'll come up with things. And so that's his mentality. And I love that. And I think that, I think that when you LFG, when you talked about Stanford, I think you're right on there. And we should hopefully see some of those concepts additionally this year. Antoine, thank you for your thought. Sorry, Dre. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I would say no. I think the best both the college and NFL levels, to me, the best offenses have a quarterback and a coach and a head coach that are collaborative, right? Think about Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. It also speaks to ownership of an offense, right? That tells me that JJ, because if you're gonna have the gumption to challenge your head coach on what you guys can do with your offense, that tells me you probably understand the offense through and through. So, that's a great sign that, hey, I understand the offense. I know what we can do, but I think we can do this, this, and this. Well, hey, if that's the case, that's a really good sign for Michigan. Really good sign.
Absolutely. Okay, so Antoine, thank you for your super chat, man. Those of you who've been giving super chats today, we really appreciate you because it really does help the channel. We got a beast coming. His name is Hogan. Tight end, blocks like an offensive tackle and catches like a wideout. Check him out. Yeah. So, and Hogan's from Washington. That's interesting. Okay, Jason, cool. Yeah, the tight end position is one where I feel pretty good about what's happening with it. There were of course some worries when Eric All transferred and when Luke Schoonmaker. Both of them were, of course, some of the best we've had. But it
Both
seems
started.
like
Right.
it
Yeah.
seem-
It's
you know,
that was a tough. I mean, that was a that was tough, man. I mean, going into last year, the number one tight end was Eric All. Going into last year,
right.
he made the game winning play versus Penn State on the road, right? So he got hurt very quickly into the season. Then Schoolmaker, gets hurt, and then all of a sudden, you're down to Colston Loveland by the time you get to the title game. And yeah, to see an exodus of that position, of good players to that position, is always concerning. No matter what you have behind them, it's tough to continually, replenish the positional group, especially when it's one of your strengths. But they've done a pretty good job, and I feel pretty good about, AJ Barner, from Indiana, like that's experience. You can't coach that you have to go through that. Right. So to have him there as, as that second guy, to presume that, of course, that's big. It really is.